Oh my God. Yeah. Pudding. Hi, Shadaya. Good to see you on here. Just getting things connected to Facebook Live, which always takes so long. Come on. Anyway, I'm really excited and I'm nervous. I don't know if you saw my Facebook Live video earlier, but I was nervous. Come on, dude. Unable to access Facebook. Lovely. Let's try refreshing. Tech. It's always fun. Always fun. Ooh, here we go. All right. And go live. Ooh. Go live. Preparing live stream. Oh, we're live. Oh my gosh, we're live. Maybe. Just making sure. Come on. Here we go. Okay. Make sure I mute myself so I don't hear myself. That's always awkward. Yay! Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live show of Entrennial Talks. That's a hashtag, by the way, in case you didn't know what that was. Yeah, thank you for the likes. Thanks for the hearts and everything. Always appreciate that. I am really, really excited to talk to you guys. Hey, Cherise. Hey, Faith. Hey, Shadaya. Hey, Carol. Hey, Raj. Good to see you on here. Yeah, so I did a Facebook Live earlier today. I was nervous. This is the first time that I have done a live in Entrennial Talks by myself. I've always done these Entrennial Talks with guests, and I always rely on their content, and I always ask them questions. And so this is my first time actually doing a live broadcast of Entrennial Talks with me, the founder, Anastasia Button. So I am just going to dive into it. This is host of the show is me, Anastasia Button, but it is from Entrennial University. Now, if you want to know what Entrennial is an entrepreneur millennial put together, Entrennial. And Entrennial University is all about connecting founders to these high-profile mentors and to have peer-to-peer contact as support group, but also to be able to gain some joint ventureship and some clients, but most of all, to get that mentorship and that one-on-one action to accelerate their business to the next level, as this is an accelerator community. In any case, I'm just going to dive into the awesome content, and we'll just go at it. Hey, Cherise, thank you so much. Really appreciate your support. And, if you guys know anybody who would like to see this, do share it. I know that there are going to be plenty of millennial entrepreneurs out there who want to be world leaders, whether that's in their industry, whether that is just to, create a big impact on the world, maybe even in their own lives. And so this is going to be some good stuff. So this is part 1 of a part 5 series of how millennial entrepreneurs can take over the world and be those millennial leaders. So as you may know, baby boomers are retiring. Yes, they are finally retiring. Thank you, baby boomers, for everything that you have done. It is time to rest. And we are very excited to have these millennial entrepreneurs kind of filling in the vacuum that's happening with all these boomers leaving the business world and all these millennials coming in and kind of taking over with these tech startups, et cetera, et cetera. Really exciting stuff. But some things that we're seeing that millennials are needing is a little bit more of these leadership concepts. And so we're going to kind of talk about that today. Earlier this week, I did another live where I was talking about the 3 people that you generally see out in the world. Now, I know that we have a lot of coaches on here and a lot of people that are popping up on the live feed that are coaches themselves or in the business world. And generally, you do see these 3 people. You maybe even know a family member or a friend, or you yourself are these. So I want you to tell me which of these 3 people you are as we go through these 3 main people that are out in the world and how we can kind of shift the mindset to where you are starting as this one person, but then can move into the ideal leader that people are wanting to follow, but also a high performer and a high achiever within your business to make that great impact. So let's get started. So the 3 people that are out there in the world, And the third I'm going to save for last, as that is the person that I feel most would like to become to be the world leader. So let's start with the first two, where we tend to, whether it's culture, whether it's upbringing, whether it's fear, whether it's just our experiences in life, we tend to create these certain mindsets of ourselves to where when we go forward, it is difficult for us to overcome or blast through these obstacles. Like Cherie's here, she's the author of Obstacle Buster. And so she knows what I'm talking about. Now, these two mindsets that these two people tend to have, the first person is what I call is the cyclist. So if you want to think of somebody who's on a bike and they're just biking. But I want you to imagine yourself on the bike. And I want you to imagine yourself in the gym on the bike. So you're in cycle class, right? And the cycle instructor is just telling you to go faster, or stand up and pedal, or sit down and pedal and lean forward. And you're telling to do all these things and you keep moving forward, but you're not actually going anywhere. You're just making a lot of traction, but there's no progress. There's no results that are happening. And yeah, Raj, Obstacle Buster, check it out. And so the cyclist is the person that just keeps moving forward, but not actually making results or making changes in themselves, their business, and the impact that they're creating out in the world. Now, I want you to understand that this cyclist doesn't really understand that they're not really just cycling through. They know they're not getting anywhere or getting as far as they wish. Now, this cyclist is somebody, as you can even think of, on a merry-go-round, right? But this merry-go-round or this bike that they're pedaling, it is full of worry, anxiety, and fear. All appropriate things that people have on a daily basis, but when it comes to such an amount that it's practically paralyzing to where you won't actually gain results, that's when it becomes a problem. Now, these people tend to live very much in the past. They usually stick within a certain incident in their past, whether that's something that happened in their family, something that happened in a relationship, some sort of trauma that maybe happened in their lives, all valid, all experiences that I totally honor and acknowledge. But the problem is that the cyclist focuses on those so much so that the worry and anxiety of it repeating, especially the feeling of it to repeat, paralyzes them to where they don't move forward. So for example, I can actually tell you of some people who have put their worry and anxiety and their cycle effect onto someone else. So here's a great example. Here is somebody who wants to start a business, and they're so excited. They want to get this business up and running, but then they just keep thinking of why they shouldn't do it. Oh, I can't do it now because I have to, wait for my tax return. Oh, I can't do it now because I have kids and they're about to be out of school. Oh, I can't do it now. And they keep thinking about why they can't. Now, they don't focus on why they should, and how they can. And a lot of this can come from upbringing. Innocently, our parents, society, and the world tends to fear for us because they have fear themselves. For example, I love this example. My aunt and uncle, we were having a family dinner once, and this was like a year or so ago. And when we were chatting, they were talking about a dinner they had with wonderful friends. Now, these friends were pretty successful people. They had great careers, and their daughter was about to go to college. And she wasn't quite sure what she was going to do because she had such a huge passion for art and creating art and wanting to deliver that art to the world. I believe it was painting of some kind. And her parents were just so worried that she was not going to be successful, that she was not going to be able to pay rent, that she was not going to be able to have enough money. There were so many, we don't think you have, or we don't think you will, than there was, we think you could, and we think that it's a possibility. So they kept thinking she can't have a career in art. She can't have enough money to pay rent. She would have to get a full-time job in order to support her startup or her artistic ways. And the problem is that they were saying, we don't want you to go to school for art. We want you to go to school as something of a profession. I forget what it was. It was like a lawyer or a doctor, one of those high professions. And it's like, we want you to go here because life will be secure. And I love what my uncle and aunt said, or asked them, really, these parents, what they asked them in response. They said, yes, your daughter could totally, completely crash and burn as an artist. She could not even sell one painting. That is totally a possibility. She may have to have another job to where she can pay for rent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She may love what she does, but she won't be able to have the money to support a lifestyle that she craves. That is totally a possibility. But isn't it a possibility that she could fail as a doctor, that she could fail as a lawyer, that she could fail as all those other professions that you would wish for her to pursue? Absolutely. But which do you think she would enjoy failing at most? Being a doctor, being a lawyer, or being an artist? I'll let you interpret that one. So I love that story because it's totally to point. You could fail at everything. And I mean everything, guys. You can fail at drinking water. I know I've had my fail moments. I'll tell you what, they have these fail videos out there. You can't skate, you can't walk on ice, you can't walk on water. For crying out loud, you can fail at just eating candy and choke and die. What was that TV show of like 1,001 ways of how you can die? There are so many different things that you can fail at. So why don't you enjoy the journey towards failure and something that you absolutely love rather than something you absolutely hate or isn't an actual authentic passion? And so that's what happens is we get people who are cyclists. This is that first person I was talking about. They are cyclists. And cyclists, they just keep pedaling and pedaling and pedaling away. They think that they're getting the instruction from the instructor of what they need to do, but they're not actually moving anywhere. They stay put. To move somewhere, you got to get off the pedal bike and you got to get on a real bike, on the real road to get out there. And that's called passion and purpose. And so we're going to talk about how you can get to be from a cyclist to the third person, which most people want to become, is to be that world leader and how you can help create an impact on the world, but also create a following to get there. So that was the first person, the cyclist, the person who has so much focus on loss, on the past, and has so much fear, worry, and anxiety that they just don't move forward and they keep failing regardless. The second person, which is the most common person that I find in the world. I mean, we all have these attributes of these people in different aspects of our life, and I'll get into that in a second. But the second person that's out there is what I call the analyst. Now, you may understand what that means. You may be like, that's totally me. The analyst is the person who does so much research that they go into analysis paralysis, meaning doing so much research that they never actually take a movement forward with it. They have so much knowledge. They know how to do sales. They know how to do market research and Facebook ads and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but they never actually use the knowledge. They just know so much, they never actually use it. Now, here's why, and I'll tell you an analogy. This all comes back to fear. But like the cyclist, that was a person who mostly lives in the past. The analyst is someone who's very much in the present, but is paralyzed by fear to look into the future. So the analyst, I love to use the example of the Ferris wheel. So if you've ever been to an amusement park or you've seen a Ferris wheel, you know what I'm talking about. You get into the bucket, the ride, and it takes you up the Ferris wheel all the way to the top and all the way back down, and then you get off. Or you can stay on and go around and around and around again. Well, the Ferris wheel is exactly where the analyst loves to live. The analyst will get on the Ferris wheel, or as we call research, or preparing, or ramping things up and setting things up. So the analyst will get onto the Ferris wheel, and the Ferris wheel will begin to move. Now, let's say it's the beginning of the day. It's sunrise, and you get on the Ferris wheel. You start to move up the Ferris wheel to the top. Now, the top will show you the horizon. Your vision, everything comes together. You can see but you can see the shadows, and you can see the hills, you can see the valleys, and you can see the trials and the tribulations ahead. Well, this could happen, and that could happen, and that could happen, and this could happen, and that could happen. So you start to see all the hills and valleys because the sun is just rising. So you can see everything. And so you say, you know what? This isn't the right path. And so you start to go back around the Ferris wheel to the end, where you're supposed to jump off to get started to walk towards that horizon, but you decide, now's not the time. I don't know enough. I need to look again. And so you start to go around the Ferris wheel again. Hey, Daryl. Hey, Dean. Hey, Juniper. Thanks for being on here. So you start to go around the Ferris wheel again. More research, more looking into how can I find a better opportunity? And you get to the top and you see the horizon, but now it's noon. It's the middle of the day. The sun has shifted, therefore the shadows of the hills and valleys have shifted. They changed. Well, now you're looking at a whole new landscape and you say, well, there's a problem and there's a problem and there's a problem, and I'm seeing all the hills and valleys that I would have to conquer to get there. And it paralyzes. And so you say, I need more research. And so you go back down the Ferris wheel, and the moment when you're supposed to get off the ride to move towards that horizon, you decide, no, I need more research. So you start to go back up again. And finally we get to the top and it's sunset. It's the end of the day. Again, the sun is in a different position, so the hills and valleys have cast a different shadow, and so now you're seeing different bumps, different valleys, and you say, problem, 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 now's not the time. And so you start to go back down the Ferris wheel, and again, you don't jump off the Ferris wheel, and now it's the end of the day. You could be on the Ferris wheel for an entire day. You could be on the Ferris wheel for 10 years. Which do you choose? Go around a couple times, move forward. You are going to have hills. You are going to have valleys. You are going to have great times, and you're going to have troublesome times. Acknowledge them. Take courage. Lean on courage to move forward towards your horizon. That's where the vision is at. There's never a right time to have children. There is never a right time to buy a house, really. There is never a right time to do a career change, to move, to get married. There's never really the perfect time. You are so present in the moment, you don't see how much time you've wasted in the past, and you don't see the future fading away. You need to jump off the Ferris wheel. If you are an analyst in any parts of your life or business, health, fitness, business marketing, onboarding, launching, content creation, sales, any of this, you have to get off the Ferris wheel at some point or another and never say, one more round. I will go around one more time, because it'll never stop. The Ferris wheel never stops. You could be on there for one day, or you could be on there for 10 years. That's completely up to you. So do you keep that in mind? The first person was the cyclist. They just keep pedaling on that bike and they never actually make results. The second person was the analysis. They get into analysis paralysis. They get onto that Ferris wheel and they never jump into the walk towards the horizon of their vision. So here's the third person. Now, the third person is where everybody likes to be. And that's what I'm going to help you move from the first and second person into this third person. So the third person is what I call the solutionist. It's kind of self-explanatory. This is the person that is making solutions to problems. Now, this can be in all sorts of different aspects of your life or business. But the idea of the solutionist is what I like to think of it as the mad scientist. This is the person that has such an idea that some people think they're crazy. You want to solve this problem and you think you can do it? And they say, yes, anyway. They don't go into analysis paralysis. They don't go into the cyclist. They stay as the mad scientist. Hey, Heather, thanks for joining us. They stay as the mad scientists and they decide to move forward. And how they move forward is very different. They say, I see a problem, whether it's in my life, my business, or in someone else's. I'm going to create a product or service. I see a problem and I feel like I know what the solution is, or I have an idea of what it is. They don't know all the answers. Now, the mad scientist goes down to the scientific method. Now, let's go back to elementary school and middle school to the scientific method, right? The first thing you have to know is something you want to discover. So a problem that you want to solve. And you create a hypothesis. Now, the hypothesis is written in pencil, not pen. The hypothesis is written in pencil, meaning it could be completely wrong. The solutionist understands this, but they move forward anyway. They create a penciled in hypothesis and they say, I feel like to solve that problem in my life or in their life, that this would be the solution. And so then they test the hypothesis. They go out and they do a little bit of market research. They do some interviews. They maybe actually implement the product, a prototype, or they do the service themselves on a couple people. For example, when I started going into coaching and this authorship, I actually did free coaching for 10 sessions. Free coaching for 10 people for 6 months. Because I was testing my process. I was testing my 20 questions to find your purpose. I was testing all sorts of things. Thank you, Raj. We really appreciate you telling us that you're an analyst, not a cyclist. I think that's a little bit better than the other, but you need to get off that Ferris wheel. So when I went out and I coached these 10 people for 6 months, testing my process, trying out new things, because I didn't have any formal training and I didn't have the funds to go into formal training. So I tried to test the process on 10 volunteers for 6 months. We met every week. So that's like 32 weeks times 10. So I had 320 sessions before I actually started asking for payment. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but I'm saying that's what I did. So I was testing it. So you create the hypothesis, then you test it. Then you get feedback from it. So the solutionist tests it out, asks for feedback, whether that's through survey, whether that's through, just a conversation, however that looks like to you, you need to get feedback from what you're testing, whether it's a product, a service, or for someone else. And then you need to analyze that feedback and you need to refine it. Once you refine it, you send it back out and you take it to market. Unless this is a $1 billion project, you want to get this out there soon. You don't want to get this out there in 5 years with analysis paralysis. You need to get out there now. Do some pre-sales. Do some prototype testing. Do beta testing. Right now, Entrennial University is in beta testing, folks. I am still in the testing and refining process before I actually say we're no longer in beta. This is what we have, but that doesn't mean I don't continue to refine and redefine, take feedback and redefine, take feedback, redefine, all of that. Once you go to market, that's all you do. You get feedback and you refine. You get feedback and you refine. Why do you think Coca-Cola is still around? Why do you think they thought polar bears would be a great thing for their ad? Why do they think that they did all these really weird community commercials would be great? These companies are doing something that you're not. They put things out to market. They get the feedback. They realize their hypothesis is pretty accurate or it just needs refinement. And then they redefine it. Then they test something else. And then they test something else. That's why they call things like A/B testing. You test this and you test that at the same time and see what works best. Testing is huge in business, and we don't do it enough. The solutionist understands this. But I want you to get that the solutionist acts relatively quickly. The solutionist does not get caught up in the past, learns from the past to make sure they make better decisions in the future, but does not get stuck in analysis paralysis like the analyst. They make sure they only ride the Ferris wheel maybe a couple times, and then they get off to move to the horizon, knowing that there's valleys and there's hills to conquer. Taking courage to move forward to the horizon. That's what the solutionist is. But I want you to get that they know that the valleys and the hills exist. So they're going to have to pivot their movements to make better, bigger impact, to get better on return on investment, to get better leverage on the revenue they're pouring out towards advertising, product development, whatever that is. And so I want you to understand that the solutionist doesn't look at hills and valleys. The solutionist is literally looking at a maze from an angled bird's eye view, right? So they're looking at this maze. Hey, Izzy Stark, good to be here. And they're looking at this maze knowing that I might bump a wall over here. So I might have to backtrack and look at my hypothesis and then do some testing and then move over here. See if this test will work. And then see if this test will work. And see if this test will work. Until finally you get to the end of the maze. But the cyclist and the analyst rely on fear rather than relying on courage. So I really want you to analyze yourself in different aspects of your life. You may be the cyclist in business. You may say, oh my gosh, I can't move forward with this because I don't have enough money. It's not the right time. The market doesn't think. I don't have any credibility. I don't. You don't move forward with that. But you're a cyclist when it comes to your business, but you may be a solutionist when it comes to your health and fitness. So you may go to the gym every single day and be like almost a gym rat in a sense, and you're going and you're getting healthier and healthier and you're eating better and better because you know the hypothesis, you've been testing it out and you've been seeing the results. And if you don't see results, you pivot to where you will begin to see more results at the gym. Now, you might be somebody who is an analyst when it comes to their health and fitness. You might be the one saying, hey, maybe I should Oh, thanks, Sharice. Really appreciate it. Great speech flow and calmer voice. I do have a high-pitched voice and I get very excited. So anyway, good feedback, Sharice. Really appreciate it. I'm going to refine and I'm going to move forward with a better, calmer, smoother voice. So you may be an analyst when it comes to your health and fitness. So you might just continue to research, what might be my best food plan? What might be my best gym routine? What might be the best gym to go to, the best trainer? And you never actually take action. You may go to the gym once or twice and be like, oh, that didn't work at all. I didn't lose 50 pounds in one day, so I better go back and do more analysis. But you might be a solutionist when it comes to your business. So you may you may have a business model that you have refined and redefined, and you continue to test it and you continue to work that hypothesis, and then you continue to work your messaging, your marketing, and your sales and your skills because you realize what you need to do. So you can have the cyclist, the analyst, and the solutionist all in one person. It just depends on what you're looking at. So I want you to kind of look at yourself and look at different avenues of your life, your relationships, your business, your health and fitness, and how you look at yourself and how you want to improve yourself. Look at those 4 areas to start and see, are you person number 1? Are you person number 2? Are you person number 3? And if you're person number 1 or 2 in a certain area, I encourage you to start to create a plan, but not get stuck in that plan, to be a solutionist. So let's talk about that. How can you go from person 1 and 2 to become a solutionist? Hey, Hector, thanks for being on here. Really appreciate it. One of the biggest things that we need to understand is that you are not going to know all the answers. There is going to be fear around you no matter where you go. Acknowledge it, accept it, and accept the challenge. There was this psychological study, and I'm going to forget because this is kind of off the cuff. I'm going to forget where it was at, but there's this psychological study that happened where if they presented somebody with a problem, how they approached that problem was with anxiety, stress, and some fear. But when they changed the language and how they presented it as a challenge, the brain decided to interpret it not as fear, not as stress and anxiety, but as opportunity. So when you look at something coming your way, whether that's, a relative that's really giving you a hard time, whether that is you're not really making the best impact in the marketplace, et cetera, think of it as a challenge. Choose to say that is a challenge, and I will overcome that challenge by using the solutionist formula, the scientific method. You'd be surprised what kind of results you can get if you really look at it in almost a bird's eye view, right? An objective point of view. Look at it as an objective point of view. You are not your business. You are not your product. You are not your service. You are not how people, deal with daily life and choose to go with your product or service or not. Your sale is not you. You are you. Understand that what you're creating is the bird's eye view of this great impact you can do on the world. And when you get way too deep into it, so much emotional attachment, that's a great opportunity for fear to come in, because that's when you're in your head. That's where fear loves to breed, is in your head. You need to get more present, but also moving forward to the future and remembering what happened in the past. But moving forward is the only way you can actually go in life. If you're not moving forward, then you don't feel satisfied. You don't feel excited. You don't feel passionate. So getting into the solutionist mindset is to understand you're going to have challenges and understand that you have courage to go through those challenges. And part of this solutionist is really being part of the mindset of a true critical thinker. Now, when I say critical thinker, people are going, well, is that someone who's very analytical? They look at numbers? No. No. A critical thinker is somebody who can lead, be a solutionist, be quick to act, and also be able to communicate correctly. I'm going to continue with these parts of the next, 4 parts of this 5-part series that are going to talk more about the critical thinking side. But the critical thinker sees the solutionist and they act on the solutionist within. But they also understand that there's time frames and there's how do you go about things better. And they look at the overall picture and they see which avenue is going to be the best. So my mother was a wonderful, wonderful advocate for critical thinking, and she really taught me a lot when I was growing up. She was a charge nurse at one of the biggest hospitals in Denver, Colorado. And there's some funny stories there I'll save for later. But she was the charge nurse, and she was just baffled by sometimes when she would have these usually younger nurses, just because they haven't gained the experience and skills yet. Nothing against them, but they just haven't built it up. And she said these younger nurses just didn't quite know how to access their critical thinking, and they're very hesitant to go into it. When you're hesitant to go into something that would help or improve you, it's just because you're afraid that you're not either going to be good enough, or you're not going to be able to follow through, or you're not, that fear-based, right? So she knew that this critical thinking was really going to help these nurses. Now in the medical world, they have something where they call closure. That's right, closure. I had to think about that. It was like, not closing, closure. And when a doctor, for example, goes in to see a patient, he looks at the chart and he sees all the facts, right? The analysis paralysis side. He sees all the facts and everything that's happening there. And he looks at the patient real quick, touches a few things and says, it's this. Prescribe him this medication. And I think a lot of you can relate to this. Prescribe this medication. They'll get better. The patient doesn't get better. The patient gets worse. So there's this thing called premeditated closure. And there's a lot of literature out there. You can go and Google it. It's usually said in the medical world, but I think it's accurate in business too. There's premeditated closure. There's this, I think I know what's happening. And so I am going to test just a couple things. And then if it fits what I think, then I'm just going to create the solution for it, prescribe the medication for it. And it creates problems down the road. So what my mother really instilled in nurses is to have more critical thinking. Doctors are too busy to sometimes think about critical thinking. But nurses, they're with the patients all the time. They're in the trenches. They see, they're it's like someone working on their business. They're in the trenches. They are moving forward. They're doing their startup, their accelerator, and they're moving along. And so they have to be a critical thinker by looking at the overall picture of, say, the patient or the business or the market and say, well, then there's this blood pressure going on. There's this thing going on with their potassium levels. There's this thing going on with their IV, and they're only going to the bathroom this many times. They see all the variables. And then they create a constructive, critical solution to that patient, and they suggest it to the doctor. And most of the time, that tends to make the patient better in the medical world. Same thing with the business. You got to look at the overall bird's eye picture, whether it's life or business, same thing. Look at the horizon, see the big picture. Look at all of the numbers that the analysis paralysis gets so paralyzed with, and then move forward with a plan quickly. That's what a critical thinker really does. They can identify, they create the solution to the problem, and then they move with it. So something you want to think about is when you enter into this critical thinker world, and when you enter into the solutionist world and you start to pivot to recognize bird's eye picture, my activity, and how I need to pivot to move forward into the solutionist mindset, I really want you to look at the business you're creating or the project you're working on or the goal that you're working on. And I want you to really write down 3 things. Write down 3 things. That's it. I want you to write down how much time per week are you going to dedicate to that goal, that business, that project, that service, et cetera, et cetera. How much time per week are you going to dedicate to that goal? Keep doing this. Here you go. To that goal. The second thing I want you to write down is how long are you going to continually work weekly to get that goal accomplished? Is that 1 year? You're doing 20 hours a week for a whole year. You're doing 30 hours a week for 5 years. How long are you going to dedicate to that goal with that amount of time per week to accomplish it? The third thing I want you to look at is how are you going to do it? Are you doing it through certain marketing materials? Are you going to do it through a lot of market research and then implement that? What's the plan to get there? What is the product or the service that you're going to provide? The how and the what, really. So how much time per week, keep doing this, how much time per week you're going to dedicate to that goal, how long are you going to dedicate to that goal? 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years? And then how are you going to do it? Are you going to go through a market research company? Are you going to do a bunch of surveys? Are you going to do a lot of phone calls and have those conversations? Are you going to pivot your sales structure, et cetera, et cetera? What are you going to do and how are you going to do it to get there? And bonus number four is why. Why are you going to do that? And in that way. And when you look at all of these variables, especially the first three, how much time per week, how long, and how or what you're going to do, really look at that. And in a solutionist mindset, this is your first exercise. In a solutionist mindset, I want you to look at that and I want you to be honest with yourself. And I want you to say, is that going to happen? Do I believe I can do that? Because I'll tell you what, if you tell me that you're going to start a business and you're going to dedicate 100 hours a week for your project or goal, and you're going to do that for 3 months to make $2 million, and you're going to do it through Facebook funnels or something like that with a product or service that you have provided, and that's going to be the goal, and that's how you're going to accomplish it. If you're going to dedicate 100 hours a week for 2 months, maybe, depends on how knowledgeable you are, but do you have the knowledge already? See, there's a critical thinking side. Do you have the knowledge already to accomplish that, or do you need to build up that knowledge? So that means that you need to change one of the three things. So if you don't have the knowledge to work 100 hours a week in order in 3 months to make, $2 million, if you don't know how to do that, you need to get educated. So you need to change one of the things. You need to either up your hours to 200 hours a week, which is impossible, or you need to lengthen your time for 2 years or 1 year, or you need to change how you're going to do that. So another example would be if you're wanting to build a business in, well, let's go back to the past. Let's say roofing sales. You want to be a roofing contractor? Okay. So if you want to knock on doors, let's say, 30 hours a week. Okay. So there's 30 hours a week that you're going to go knock on doors. Well, how long are you going to do that? Well, I want to do that for about 2 years, and I think I can make about $300,000 a year. Okay. And you're going to do that by knocking on doors, Facebook ads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a plan. That's a good possibility that could happen because you're going to do, you're going to dedicate 30 hours a week knocking on doors to make sales, to make about $300,000 a year, and you're going to give yourself 2 years to do that. And you're going to do that through Facebook marketing, and you're going to go knocking on doors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. None of that really needed to change. Maybe you could up to 40 hours a week, or maybe you could bring it down or up depending on, the first one. So you want to look at all three and see what needs to change, tweak, pivot, and move forward. Tweak, pivot, move forward. So on a weekly basis, are you measuring your results? On a monthly basis, are you measuring your results? When you do that, you start to say, oh, I didn't get enough sales in there. That means I need to up my hours per week, or I need to bring down my goal or extend out my time. That's what you need to start thinking about, critical thinking, and how you're going to plan your activities in your business and how you're going to structure your business to create those goals. Because how many times, and I love these people, I really do, because I know that they're excited and their heart's ready to go, and they're like, I'm going to make $1 million by the end of the year by only working 4 hours a week, by doing Facebook posts of quotes, and then every now and then a picture of my landing page or something like that. One of three things needs to change. You either need to work more than 4 hours a week, or you need to do that for about 10 years, or you need to find a different way of how you're going to attract those people. So many times I get these huge, amazing dreamers, and it's wonderful, it's great, the energy's there, but they just don't see how their previous habits will create an impact on their current habits. And if their current habits are matching what their romanticized habits are of what they're trying to accomplish that year. So in a sense, I'm telling you, be realistic, but stretch and push yourself at the same time. So that's what I'm really excited about. This is part 1 of a part 5 series. I'm going to be doing another one in about 3 weeks. So I guess once a month. Cool. So next, in about 3 weeks, I'll be doing part 2, which is going to be talking a little bit more about the critical thinker and how you can communicate your leadership to others around you in your workforce, or to your customers, ideal customers, your following, your fans, when you're on stage, whatever that is, how you can attract more people to you to follow you and create an impact on the world. So I hope you all really found value in this. And I would like to hear if you are either a cyclist, an analyst, or a solutionist. And in what area? I'd like to know what area you feel you are in those. And I hope you guys had a really good time today, and I hope you got some good value and knowledge from this. I'm really excited, and whew, man, we did this. I was so nervous at the beginning of this. I was on that Ferris wheel trying to figure out, okay, how does this work? How does this work? How does this work? But I had to jump off the Ferris wheel, and I had to get this live out there and unleash a little bit of my influencer self, because I've been hiding that from the online world. I've been speaking on stages in front of thousands of people, but I have not been doing it on live because for some reason that kind of terrified me. But this wasn't too bad. I was speaking so fast in the beginning, so I'm sorry, guys. I was nervous, but I slowed down. Thanks, Therese, for giving me that notification. I really appreciate it. And I refined and I moved forward. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us on Entrennial Talks. Next week, we are going to have our first hot seat. So excited about our first hot seat. We're going to have Kenneth Chu in the hot seat. I am very, very excited. This is a guy who really helps mothers build their businesses while they're also being moms. And so I'm really, really, really excited because he's going to make a great impact on people. We're going to have 2 to 3 mentors in the virtual room itself, and they are going to help Kenneth accelerate his business so that he can magnify his impact. Jump, accelerate, magnify. That is the Entrennial University way. Looking forward to next week with Kenneth. Please be there. It'll be the same date, same time on Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much, guys. Talk to you soon.